Hello everyone, today we'll go through chapter 8, which is on location planning and analysis. So in this chapter, we go through in what situations we make location decisions, different available options, what are the different factors associated with location planning and analysis, and the very basic steps in decision process. And we also look at some problems and techniques that can be helpful. Now, need for location decisions come from several factors. First one is marketing strategy. So it depends on what kind of marketing strategy, which is linked again to the organizational strategy a company is pursuing. You can think of examples like banks or maybe fast food chains. So their strategy could be basically a customer convenience. So based on that, they may make their location decisions. Another example could be supermarket. So supermarket obviously wants to be somewhere where they can attract more and more customers to visit their stores. Another one is cost of doing business. So because cost will reduce profit, and especially if location is directly impacting, let's say, transportation cost to move material from one place to other place. So that is another criteria for helping to make proper location decisions. Third one is growth. So if a company wants to grow, they want access to maybe more customers. So obviously they need to decide on location. One example could be, let's say a big company may be doing business in, say, United States, and they want to expand into, say, Europe or Asia to attract more customers. So obviously they will be looking for a proper and suitable location within those areas. Another one could be depletion of resources. Like in there are many businesses where basic resources are the key for their success. So some examples could be fishing, or it could be logging, or mining. So all these resources are limited, and as they get depleted, a company has to look for new areas or new locations. What is the nature of location decisions? So first one is strategic importance of location decisions. So location is something which is strategic in nature, and obviously it has to be again linked back to the organizational strategy because it involves long-term commitment and it can incur long-term costs for the company. It can have significant impact on investments, revenues, and operations. It can make them very efficient, or it can go in opposite direction if it is not chosen properly. Also, supply chains. So also depends on in what position of the supply chain a company is. If a company is in the beginning of the supply chain where they are basically getting the raw material and supplying it to another company, so they have to locate themselves in those areas where they can get raw material more easily. On the other hand, if a company location in the supply chain is towards the end, so in that case they have to locate somewhere closer to area where they can attract more and more customers. So supply chain also is very important in making location decisions. Objective of location decisions. So like different companies may have different strategy. Like strategy could be in terms of low cost provider, or it could be flexibility. So all those things have to be kept in mind. So also looking at the profit potential, especially for those companies towards the end of the supply chain, if they locate in some remote area, so obviously they may not be able to attract a lot of customers and then getting the profit. Now, one thing to remember is no single location may be better than others. So it's not that one particular location is the optimal because there are so many other factors which also contribute to the success, overall success. So what companies do is they identify several locations from which they can choose. Now, location options. So one has to keep in mind that in future, if they want to expand, so they have to choose a location where they will have more room to expand. It could be they want to add new facilities, or it could also be in future, like if a business is not successful in one area, they have to move. So all that has to be kept in mind while making decisions. So the basic steps involved are listed here. So decide on a criteria. So what is the most important criteria? Is it related to reducing, say, transportation cost, or is it related to being some like a small company which gets maximum business from a bigger company? So obviously, this smaller company like themselves to be near the big company so that they can reduce on the transportation cost. So decide on the criteria on which to evaluate. Identify important factors. So once that criteria has been decided, then what are the factors that have impact on that? And then develop different alternatives. So it could be identifying general regions. So for example, if somebody wants to locate somewhere within Massachusetts because of different reasons, could be low tax or government support, things like that. Identify a small number of community alternatives, and then identify site alternatives, and then evaluate and make selection. So these are like broad steps during that process. There are so many factors involved, and 4 of them are broadly listed here. It could be related to regional factors. It could be community considerations. There could be multi-plant strategies or site-related factors. So we'll look at each one of them, starting with the first one, which is regional factors. The first one is location of raw material. So when looking into regional factors, location of raw material is critical. And there are basically 3 reasons. One is necessity. Second one is perishability. And the third one is transportation cost. So because of these 3 reasons, one may want to locate closer to where they can get raw materials. So if you take example of nuclear reactors, so a nuclear reactor needs a lot of water for their operations. So obviously they should locate where they can get sufficient supply of water all the time. On the other hand, big plants like, let's say, steel plant, they need a lot of electricity consumption. So they want to locate somewhere they can get that kind of supply. If you look into, say, services, and if we are looking into, let's say, car rental, so they may want to locate somewhere near the airport where they can attract more traffic. So location of raw materials and the 3 reasons are associated with regional factors. The second one is location of markets. So especially for areas with situations where a company is closer to the end of the supply chain. So obviously it makes sense to locate near the markets. And nowadays, because of globalization, for example, if you take example of Toyota, a Japanese company, but they also have plants in the US. So obviously it will be more expensive if they make the cars in Japan and then try to transport it to US. So it makes more sense that they locate near to the markets and manufacture those products there and then provide it to the customers. Labor factors is another important thing. There are areas where you can get labor with good skills at a lower rate. On the other hand, some places it could be very expensive. So companies try to reduce cost by locating in those areas where labor is not very expensive. Then climate and taxes could be another reason. Like if it is always snowing in one of the regions, and if that is impacting the productivity of a company, they may want to move to some other place where they can operate maybe throughout the year. And there are many companies which get attracted to a particular location because there are a lot of tax benefits offered by the government. The next one relates to community considerations. So quality of life. So for their employees, obviously they have their families and kids who want to go to school for education. So those people obviously wants to stay in areas where they can provide that kind of quality of life. So for a company to attract such talents, company has to obviously find a place where their employees can get access to such good quality of life. Then you have services, which is again important. So it could be services related to police, it could be maybe a post office, things like that. And attitude, taxes, so governments which can provide tax benefits, that could be a good attraction. There could be community consideration with respect to environmental regulations. So maybe if there is a plant which is expected to make a lot of noise because of the type of their operations, and if they are locating in an area, residential area nearby, so obviously in future there could be a lot of complaints. So one has to look into the existing regulations before making a decision. Similarly, utilities and even developer support. Third major category is site-related factors, so which relates to land. One has to look into what type of or what quality of land they have, because if they want to go for a building which is a multi-story building, so whether that land can sustain that kind of stresses. So all that has to be evaluated. One has to look into transportation. For example, if a company's executives have to travel frequently, so obviously they want to locate probably near airport or train stations. So that is an important factor. Environmental factors are always key, and then one has to also look into legal issues related to that site. Multiple plant strategies. Now, product plant strategy, the first one is where entire product lines are in separate plants. So you have entire product lines catering to a segment of customers, and they make separate plants for that. So that's called product plant strategy. Second one is market area plant strategy. Now, market area plant strategy relates to plants are designed to serve a particular geographic segment of the market. So that's the second one. And the third one is process plant strategy. So different plants focus on different aspects of the process. So one example I can give is from auto companies. So there you will find that there is an engine plant or a transmission plant. So the entire plant is dedicated for those kind of processes which are required to assemble an engine. And process plant strategy generally are used when a final product is made up of number of parts. So that's the idea. Now, if you look at service and retail locations, so we have earlier also compared manufacturing versus service. So if you look at manufacturing, so there's always a cost focus. So they are looking to basically reduce transportation costs. They look at what transportation modes can be used and what can provide the minimum cost. Also, energy availability and related costs, labor cost, building slash leasing costs. So those are important when you look at manufacturing or distribution. If you look at service, so the focus is on the revenues, and they mainly look at demographics, so age of the customers, income, and so on. They look at population or the drawing area, who are the competitors, traffic volume and patterns. For a fast food chain, so obviously they have to look at traffic volume and patterns so that they can attract more and more customers. Customer access and parking, so all those things are important for service. Now, what are the trends, latest trends in locations? Foreign producers locating in United States. So this is occurring because of their specific needs within a company, and also because of the pressure provided by the government, especially companies which were outsourcing jobs out of US. So they are trying to have their offices in US and hire more people here. So those are some of the trends. So foreign producers locating in US, like one example I gave was Toyota, Indian IT companies of Infosys. So these companies obviously get impacted significantly because of currency fluctuations. So to overcome that, they try to do business within US. Just-in-time manufacturing is another trend. So that has an impact on location decision because of the just-in-time concept. A supplier wants to be near the bigger manufacturer to whom they are supplying, so that they can reduce their costs and also reduce time transporting those materials. Then you have micro factories nowadays, which have actually a very narrow focus, and the idea is to reduce the response time. So these micro factories, they produce very small quantities of a very specific item, and the idea is basically they can do it very quickly. And nowadays you have IT, information technology, which plays a very important role in any business, and sometimes many things can get done on the computer. So in those situations, actually for the location there could be a lot of flexibility. Now coming to global locations, so obviously globalization has a very important role to play on location. Now facilitating factors are trade agreements. It could be between two countries or a group of countries, like there is a trade agreement, let's say between US and China. And also technology is a facilitating factor. So benefits of global locations are company gaining access to more and more markets. So for example, iPad 2, when it was released by Apple in US, and then after a week or so they also released this in Europe and subsequently in Asia. So that's the benefit of getting access to global areas. It brings cost savings. So when a company is located globally, so they can reduce a lot of cost. There could be legal and regulatory things which may impact or benefit the company, and also there could be financial benefits. There could be disadvantages also. So one is like transportation costs. So if it is located globally, then for example, the item is coming from China or Taiwan to US, so obviously it will be more expensive compared to when the same product could be manufactured within US. But transportation costs will be high. Now, if you bring into picture labor cost, that can change the picture. But obviously, locating outside US for any product obviously brings in or increases transportation cost. Another disadvantage could be security. So many times in newspapers we read that something being transported over sea by ships. So there are a lot of risk to that. Another risk could be unskilled labor. So labor in poor countries or developing countries may not be highly skilled, and that can affect the quality. There could be import restrictions or sometimes even criticism. Risks. There could be political risk of locating globally, especially if it is an unstable country, places like Afghanistan or Iraq. So there could be a lot of risk associated with the business. There could be impact of terrorism, legal, or even cultural. So things which are common here may not be common in some other country. So those are the risks. For evaluating locations, we used cost profit volume analysis, which we had looked earlier in one of the chapters. So we find the fixed and variable cost and then plot the total cost and then choose the one which gives the lowest total cost. So some of the assumptions are that the fixed costs are constant, variable costs are linear, output can be closely estimated, and only one product is involved. So we are doing this analysis for one product at a time for choosing proper location. So one example is given here, example 1. So there are 4 locations, A, B, C, D, and then you have the fixed cost for each location and also the variable cost. So using this, the plot on the next slide is made. So you can see that location D here, it gives the maximum cost all the time. So obviously the other 3 locations are better than location D all the time. Now if the annual output is going to be about 5,000 units or less, then B is superior because of the low cost in that location B. Similarly, location C will be giving lower cost if the quantity is somewhere between 5,000 and 11,000. So that's the second one. Whereas location A is superior if the number or the quantity is going to be more than 11,000. So for evaluating locations, there are different methods people use. One is called transportation model. So although we don't spend too much time on transportation model here, but the idea is that decision based on movement cost of raw material or finished goods. So those things are calculated in making a decision. Now factor rating is a very straightforward and a simple method. So decision based on quantitative and qualitative inputs. Basically, these inputs are like sometimes weights or ratings which people provide based on their judgment. And then we take a weighted average to find out which location has the best score. So we have 4 different destinations, and the XY coordinates of that location are also given. So center of gravity method basically uses average or mean calculation. For X and Y, we can get the totals as 18 and 16. So X bar, which gives 4.5. So that average is 4. So the coordinates of that location based on center of gravity will be 4.5 and 4. So if we look at the 4 destinations, the closest one is destination 3. So using center of gravity method, location could be in that area. At destination 1, you could have 800. then 900, second destination, 200 and 100. Now in this case, to find the average X bar, we use what is called as weighted average. So for weighted average, what we do is your quantity, total quantity is 2000. So using quantity as a weight, so you have 2000 as denominator. You multiply for X 2 times 800, we get 2 from the X. Then plus 3 times 900 plus 5 times 200 plus 8 times 100. So this will give you 3.05. Similarly, you can find the weighted average of Y, which may come to 3.7. So the coordinates are like about 3.1 and 3.7. So that is closest to D2. In terms of X, it is close to X, but Y, because 3.7 is less than 5, so basically this location will be south, slightly south of destination 2.